Good morning, afternoon, or whenever you're listening to this. It could be 3 a.m., but welcome to Break Panel Sports. Today we're just having a little bit of fun. It's fight
It's fight
night.
night.
It was fight. Oh, it was fight night. It was fight night. It was fight club. It was all of that. Oh, I shouldn't talk about that, right?
You do
My bad.
not talk about Fight Club.
My bad. There's a couple guys in sports that definitely went about it. One side of it you're supposed to fight. The other one, I don't know if you're really supposed to fight anymore. But I'm John, joined alongside Joel for Break Panel Sports, and we've got some fights to talk about. The first one, we're going to break it down. We're going to go to the Major League Baseball world, where TA7, Tim
The
Anderson
most
and the White
expected fight
Sox.
of it all.
Absolutely. I mean, this was so expected with Tim Anderson and Jose Ramirez Jose Ramirez for the Cleveland Guardians. Yes, they changed their name as well a while ago. Awesomely. Tim Anderson with the White Sox. He's had a history of players not liking him. Let's say. And no, I'm not talking about Josh Donaldson. He is a bad human being when it comes to that and Tim Anderson. But other players around the league, have not taken the liking to Tim Anderson, and especially this one guy named Jose Ramirez. And there was a game between the Guardians and the White Sox, and you see Jose Ramirez slide into second base. Tim Anderson puts the tag down, and then brouhaha breaks loose between Tim and Jose Ramirez for about 8 seconds. I
Yeah,
think there was
about eight.
I think the average bull ride was longer than
Longer
the
than
Tim Anderson
that.
fight. I mean, this was just weird, right? Because okay, so to keep it to just be simple, I almost said shrimple. To keep it simple, Tim Anderson got knocked out cold.
Oh
I
no,
mean,
he got he got his clock clinked, bro. Oh my
he
god.
got cleaned up, bro. This was really just. I mean, again, what it doesn't. We'll get into maybe the
Down
logistics of it.
goes Anderson.
Oh my
Oh my
goodness.
god.
Cleveland Guardians radio call. I mean, if you've heard of it, if you haven't,
I,
go do that.
Let
He
me tell you
just,
something.
yeah.
Brave man for showing up like the next day. I would say straight up, I'm not showing up for a little while. I can't. There's no
You can't top
way
that, right? I mean,
There's no way that you go down like that after. Keep in mind, he put his hands up first. He was the
he went
one that
southpaw
initiated.
though.
He Anderson initiated it, and
My,
that I'm sorry,
yeah.
man. That's a horrible look. I don't want to be anywhere near any of my teammates. I don't want to see nobody. I'm
So
embarrassed to look at my family after that. Are you kidding me? That's
yeah, that's bad.
embarrassing.
I mean, well, so Tim Anderson gets. I mean, the umpire. They start kind of yelling at each other, and the umpire tries to get in there, and he's going like, "Hey, hey, hey!" for about 4 seconds, and then he just
Yeah,
backs up like he's some UFC ref, and it's just like, "All right, time to go." They're going. I don't know what to do. I
it's
don't
like
know
those
how to stop
NHL
this.
refs, actually. Like
Yeah,
those,
yeah, yeah, actually, yes, true.
you try to prevent it a
Without the
little bit, but
skates.
like once it's too far gone, whatever, back
Once
up,
the gloves
let them
come
have
off,
it.
then yeah, it's going down. Except this one was on a baseball field, and yes, hockey is known for its fights. Baseball has had its fair share of fights throughout the years, but we mentioned Fernando Dor and Jose
We need
Bautista.
more fights. We need
We
more fight.
every sport needs more fights. Encourage violence on break panel sports.
Encourage
Not really,
violence, man.
not really. We don't do that. But there's a lot of people though that are right. There's a lot of people that are like, hey, baseball needs this. And honestly, baseball, is having one of their better seasons with the pitch clock and everything. But this is probably the most talked about I've seen baseball all year long.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody heard about
Right?
this. People
You
were saying, well, this is good PR for baseball, even though it's bad PR for baseball as well. It's weird.
like honestly, when I'm first of all, I mean, I dabble a little bit into baseball, and I know well enough to know that Tim Anderson has already been having a down year
Yes.
compared to his previous season. He's been
He's
having a
had
little bit
one
of down
home
year.
run this year. He's not a home run hitter, but he's had one home run this year, and it was very recently.
This is the cherry on top of this horrible season he's been having for himself in the White Sox. Oh my god,
It's
it's like
bad.
such a perfect horrible ending because you're like,
Here's
what are we? We're in August right now. The season's gonna be over in like less than 2 months,
the thing is, that 2 months is 50 games, though. He has to go
dude.
through like 50 games.
50 more games of him putting his hands up.
Maybe he'll get one more in him. I don't
You're
know.
about you're gonna find about two more Jose Ramirez's that says, you know what? Screw
I'm,
it.
I'm gonna tell
Put your
you,
arms up, man. I'm
Jose
telling you,
Ramirez, one of the last
it's
guys I'd ever want to fight on this planet. And Tim
I will tell
Anderson
you though,
just said, "Why not?"
he hit a mean right hook. I ain't gonna lie.
He
I
got
saw
him,
that. I saw it from like three different camera angles, and I saw him
of
hit him like
course.
right on the side of like under the temple, like
Yeah,
right by
yeah,
the jaw.
yeah. He got him in the
And
jaw.
like, okay, me personally, like, with all due respect, I do believe it was just a knockdown. I don't believe he was seeing stars or nothing, but
He
like,
was wobbling, bro.
I
He was
he
he was
bro,
not standing up straight.
I don't know who, I forgot who it was, but I saw one of his teammates picked him up like a baby and
Yes,
just
because he
walked
couldn't stand up.
all the way to the bullpen. I was like, oh my God. Sorry, all the way to the dugout. I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
this is embarrassing in front of all of these people. A grown man getting picked up like
Yes,
a toddler after getting put to sleep. That's funny. I'm sorry. He got put on
yeah.
his ass, dude.
He
That was
did.
insane.
He got it. It was a straight knockdown. I mean that's a few points in any fighting match right there. And now my favorite thing though is at so Tim Anderson didn't see the media. Terry Francona, the manager of the
Yes.
Cleveland Guardians, he saw the media. My favorite clip, he was just defending Jose, of course. But my favorite clip
Yeah.
was reporter goes, so what's your thoughts on the left hook by Jose Ramirez? He goes, right hook. Continue. That was just I
Right.
mean, right hook. Yeah,
He
Jose
told
got
he
3 games
I'm pretty
and
sure
he
he
got
said
one.
too, he was just like, listen, like it's hard not to laugh. That's
Yeah, he was
kind
like
of
he basically was just like this was really funny. I mean, a guy got knocked out. He's okay. Like they had a picture of him with boxing gloves on at the field the next day. So yeah, I mean, just tough for Tim Anderson, tough for the Cleveland Guardians. I mean, this was just. I mean, the White Sox have had so they've had so many issues. You have another player coming out saying that there's no rules and that people were sleeping in the dugout, the bullpen, wherever they were sleeping. There was just nothing going on. Tim Anderson had a situation with his, I believe it was Yasmani Grandal. I could be wrong about the name though, but he said he wanted to take the day off before the All-Star break, so he could get a full break in before, he was his name was in there for being traded as every White Sox was because the team stinks. And Tim Anderson found out he wanted to take the day off and he said, I'll pay for his flight out of here. And Tim Anderson got slapped in the face by him. So this is not the first time that Tim Anderson has taken some real contact here.
I swear,
He's been going
like
through a rough one.
I think ever since the Field of Dreams games against the Yankees, like
Right, he had to
that
walk
was
off.
that's been the decline of Tim Anderson ever since that
It's been
one
tough.
high moment.
It's been
So
really tough.
fucking
It's been really tough for Tim Anderson. We'll see if he gets back at it. We'll see if the White Sox get back at it. But unlike Tim Anderson, there's been a guy that nobody would expect if you asked me 4 years ago if this guy was going to be basically at the top of the world, and so would his brother be. We're going to get into, do we even call it sports at this point?
No, I think
With
you do.
You
I think
do?
you do.
Okay. See, I
You
always
could
wonder
call
what
it
the real boxing
you could
fan
call
does
it
not
sports
respect this at all.
entertainment.
Oh yeah, it's entertainment.
Sports
We're talking
entertainment. I
about
would definitely call it that.
so we're talking about Jake Paul and Nate Diaz if you couldn't pick up on that. Because
Jeez,
this is a full fight episode right
look
here.
how low we've gotten talking
I
about Jake
know.
Paul
Oh, what have we this is
in
episode
a
2. We've
sports.
already fallen off, guys. Oh my goodness. No, but I mean, it's training camp and all that. So it's the dead heat of the summer. It's the dead heat of the sports calendar. What are we gonna do? When people fight, that's what we talk about. What's happening. But yeah, so Joel, Jake Paul, he did not win by knockout, if I'm correct. He won by decision. And if it goes
Exactly.
to decision, you're probably gonna pick the absolute superstar in Jake Paul. And calling him an absolute superstar, not talking about, his whatever bad YouTube decision he makes is weird. But at this point, I mean, he's one of the bigger names. He's. I've always thought this. He really kept boxing popular. I mean, it
Yeah.
in a way saved boxing from. I mean, obviously you had Fury, you had good fights with him and Wilder, but when you looked beyond that, boxing had nothing after that.
Boxing doesn't have a lot.
No,
Boxing right now, I will tell you, when you're looking at grown adults, guys, mid 30s, late 20s, 40s, whatever, these
right?
are the guys that have been watching boxing since like early 2000s, 90s. These guys have been
Like
watching since
Tyson,
like
they got into it with Tyson.
exactly. They're
Because that
watching these guys
a lot
in
of
their
people got
prime.
into it with Mike Tyson. Yeah,
They're watching, prime Floyd Money Mayweather. They're looking at guys that are, Manny Pacquiao, great box office guys. And now these guys are retiring. We look at the new young generation of boxing. We want to see these guys that, they have 19 KOs, 20 knockout, all this stuff that you just want to see them succeed. You want to see them have like more of I don't know how do I put it, like market value. You want
Right.
them to have like be the face of boxing, and you just can't do it. But when you look at a guy like Jake Paul, a guy who has made a lot of media attention, and a guy who not a lot of people like, this is a guy that every single time you watch him fight, you want to see him get knocked out. That's why
Yes.
people are watching boxing now. It doesn't matter who he's boxing. I understand everyone wants to talk about the narrative. Oh, I want to see him actually fight a boxer. The He's 7-1, and the one person that managed to beat him was a boxer,
Right.
and like somewhat his age too. Now looking at it, it's like it's the ultimate troll, and Nate Diaz knew it going into the fight. I don't think he did it for the money. I don't think he did it because he wants to knock out Jake Paul. I think he did it because he thought, yeah, why not? I'm 38. I haven't done much. Screw it.
Well,
Why
the
not?
money's nice. The money's nice too. I don't know what his check
Oh,
was,
the
but I'm
money's
sure it was.
nice.
I'm sure it was pretty large.
Don't get me
His
wrong. The
check.
money is nice. I'm just saying. I look at Nate Diaz right now. It's like, I mean, you see him backing up. You see him going for tackles. You see
The
him like looking at the
choke.
ground. He's slouching. He
Yeah.
doesn't care. He looks like your drunk uncle at like a cookout.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like a boxer.
Right.
He's a fighter. Totally different. Nate Diaz is a fighter. He is not a professional boxer. And everyone knew this going into the fight. And it's so funny that we look at this fight now. Jake Paul won, but you look at the media, you're saying, damn, Jake, you couldn't knock out a 38-year-old drunk man. You're struggling against him. He took you the whole way. Are you kidding me? I thought you were going to be the new face of boxing. What the hell? Like,
And now
that's
he's got
what
to prove himself, and he's going to be like, okay, I'll fight a real
exactly.
boxer, and that boxer's going to be, 45 years old. Maybe he'll fight,
Mhm.
however old Mike Tyson is right now. But I don't think he'd ever do. I don't think Mike would ever do that. No, I think actually no. I think Mike said that he's thought about it. No, I don't know. I could be
Well,
wrong.
he did have like a little bit of an exhibition fight. I want to
Yeah.
say a
Well,
year
he fought Roy
ago or
Jones
like a year.
Jr. He fought Roy Jones
Yeah,
Jr. That
yeah,
was
like a
actually
year
a
and a
fun
half ago
fight.
or
It
something
was
like that.
it was two uncles off of whatever, but I thought it was actually a fairly entertaining fight. That fight, I thought it was cool to
That
see him fight one more time.
and that's the point. It's just it. Jake Paul is exploiting the entertainment factor of it. Have it
Right.
build up. I want to look like the jackass. I want to look like the guy that everyone wants to take down. I want to be the guy that everyone's saying, "Oh, he's a fake boxer. He's not real. He's this, whatever, blah blah." Because when people are seeing this guy talk out of nowhere on television, just saying, I'm going to be the best, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that, blah, 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 it's going to cause a lot of attention for people to want to watch the fight. That's why I think, listen, you could like him, you could absolutely hate him, but right now, Jake Paul for boxing, I think it's really good for him and it's good for the sport.
And I mean, he knows what he's doing too. I take my hat off here.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to make sure that we don't go bald, get the air going through.
Yeah, it's
But
all
but he knows what he's doing, right? He knows
good.
that if I go out, it's not like I feel like a lot of it is just who Jake Paul is. Like he just is that person. But him saying I'm going to be a champ by 2026. I mean, come on,
That is funny. That
right?
no, I respect the confidence. Like I said, I'm not a Jake Paul fan or anything. I'm just
Right.
saying, you know what? Respect.
But
Because
now
that's kind of because like
he just set
he
himself
could have
up.
quit this a long time ago. He could have
Yeah.
quit this a long time ago and say this
Yeah.
isn't for me.
Yeah.
But he's finding ways to exploit it.
And he's continuing to do so. Now he did say about Nate Diaz, he was like, we should run it back in the octagon in
He agreed.
UFC. He did. Okay,
Yeah, he agreed.
so that might happen, right? If that
It could.
so if Nate Diaz went into that fight, because Jake Paul, we've never seen him fight UFC. We've never seen him go into the octagon, mixed martial arts, and he's going against, Nate Diaz, right? And UFC guys are still pretty good into their
Yeah.
late 30s. That's kind of, mid 30s is kind of when guys become champions. Nate's still got a little something in the tank if
The
he
way I
really took
view
the
it,
fight seriously.
because like in boxing, you're much more restricted.
Yes.
There's a lot more stricter rules in boxing. When it comes to UFC, it's more so a free for all. Nate could do whatever he wants to I almost
Yeah.
said Logan Paul, to Jake Paul. He could do whatever he wants to him. Like, you know, in my opinion, if that fight was to happen, personally, I don't really think it will. I think they just wanted to say something at the end.
Keep the
But
buzz going.
if
Yeah.
that fight was to happen, Nate Diaz gets Jake Paul to the ground, it's over. So
Yeah,
if he gets it to the ground, this fight is over within the first 2 rounds.
I don't
No
even think
question
two
about it in my
rounds.
book.
I don't even think 2 rounds. If like I'm assuming again, I'm assuming Nate Diaz wants to like he wants to beat Jake Paul, unlike he really wanted to in this fight.
Yeah.
And you know, then maybe there's some I don't think there'll be animosity. I think Nate will just want to prove himself. Hey, I'm still a
Mm-hmm.
better fighter than you by far. And again, Jake has not been UFC trained. He hasn't been MMA trained. He's not that guy. He's probably going to try to still do stand up. But again, we've seen Nate Diaz and we've seen what he can do against some of the best fighters to ever do it. And yeah, I don't think this is something that Jake Paul should do either. Yes, saying, hey, I got to fight Nate Diaz at the end of the day is really cool. But if he's trying to keep the whole thing going, I mean, I'm sure the check will be large. I don't even know if Dana White will want to do it, but I'm sure the check will be just fine. But I think Nate Diaz just ends the fight quickly because
You think
UFC is so stylistic and it takes years upon years upon years of hard training just to learn how to do a simple takedown in a UFC profession at that point. And Jake doesn't have that experience at all.
you
It's
also
like
want to
Miko.
make it look good, though. You also want to
No,
make it look.
yes. But what looks good for Nate Diaz is just choking him out and getting him out of there.
Yeah, that's true too.
So, I'm sure Jake
And
will want to
also,
last as long as possible.
there is something I saw in this fight where the commentators were talking. They said that the original agreement for the boxing was going to be 8 rounds, and Nate Diaz emphasized, "I want to do 10," and they did 10.
Yeah,
So
they
like
did 10.
the way I was viewing it was like, okay, clearly he wants this to last a while. He
Right.
wants this to go the distance, at least try to go the distance. I don't think UFC would be any different. I think if they do 3 rounds, he's gonna ask for 5.
Yeah, he might. He might. That's true. If he was, but yeah, I mean, again, it's a very different sport. But
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
but I mean, I feel like if Nate Diaz's goal again is if his main goal is I want to win this fight and I want to destroy Jake Paul, he'll I mean, it should go the full 5.
Mm.
But I don't know. I think Nate
It
Diaz
also would
kind of wanted the
arguably
attention.
it would arguably be like probably the most watched like fighting pay-per-view of the year.
Oh, it would be.
I I
It would be
I
up
think
there.
it absolutely would. If Jake Paul agreed to be on UFC, go mixed martial art in the octagon, I think, dude, you're gonna see like a record break. You're gonna
Now,
see something.
the thing is that wouldn't be like unless if it was a part of some other thing. If you attach that maybe to a different UFC card, like maybe that was one of the other cards, or maybe a
Oh, no,
prelim or
yeah,
something.
it wouldn't be like
It wouldn't be
like
it
like
wouldn't
a
be the
one
main
time thing.
event.
It would be an event.
Yeah,
I think it would be.
they would probably what they usually do is they'll that would be the main card of whatever this is, and then they would have other celebrity fighters fight each other. It may be hard to find enough celebrity fighters to want to do that kind of fight because boxing
Oh,
is easier. So yeah,
yeah,
at least
you
easier
know
for the
what?
common man to do.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, a lot of YouTubers out there, a lot of content creators, you've been seeing ever since, I want to say COVID, where ever since COVID, a lot of content creators are trying to, like, oh, let me get into the boxing industry. Let me try to,
Right.
If we have beef on social media, we could settle it in the ring.
And
Like
make a
that's what
million dollars. Yeah,
a lot of guys are trying, and they make money from it. They
so
make
much
money
money,
from it.
absurd money.
And some guys like Jake Paul decide to themselves like, hey, you know what? I'm what's he like 23, 24, something like that.
Is he that
You're
young?
early.
I feel like he's a little older than
He's
that.
early 20s.
I'm gonna look this up.
I'm fairly confident he's in his early 20s, but he looks at this and he says, "Hey, listen, like
He's
I think
26. Yeah, he's
well, he's
26.
26.
That's still
He's 26.
pretty young though.
That's come on. That's still pretty
Yeah.
young. You got like if he does pursue boxing as like a professional career, which I obviously
He's got 10
he's
years
doing,
at least.
he's got at least 10 years.
Yeah. He's
That,
fine.
I do think that right now, as I said before, looking at Jake Paul, what he's doing for boxing right now, a lot of people would say, oh, he's tarnishing the sport. He's making a joke out of it. I think he's enhancing it for younger generations. That's what
Now,
I think he's doing.
the thing is though, right? In a perfect world, this isn't like the main thing that's going on in boxing right now. This is
No.
it. I mean, obviously Fury's coming back and all that. He's gonna have a
And you
fight,
still got guys like Terrence Crawford. You got
Yeah.
good boxers out there.
but it's not. You're not getting there hasn't been that boxer besides Fury, who's almost on his way out.
If you ask the most casual boxing fan of all time, like, oh,
Right.
who do you know? Do you know Terrence Crawford? Do you know Jake Paul? They're like, oh yeah, I know Jake Paul. But they're
But
like
they would,
Terrence
yeah.
Crawford. They're like, and
Like
you
who's
find
that?
out
Yeah.
one of the best champions this sport has seen in forever since
Right.
Floyd.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, not a lot of people know that because Jake Paul he enhances the media side of things, and guys that have been in the sport for a very long time just don't do that because they're not focusing on that. They're just focused on fighting. That's really
Right.
it.
Right. Right. Now, the thing is, I mean, you could say it is tarnishing the sport though, because in a way, right, you got a guy like Crawford who, you say is a great champion, like a guy that can get to a great one of that higher tier, because Floyd Mayweather was a super celebrity, Manny Pacquiao was a super
Yeah,
celebrity. Right now, Terrence
exactly.
Crawford is not, unless if I'm wrong, he's not even close to that in
I
terms of stardom, in terms of like the
yeah,
common person, the casual knowing who Terrence Crawford. Everybody on the planet knows who Manny Pacquiao is. At least that
exactly.
was around during that time. You know,
Mhm.
everybody. I would say that most people do not know Terrence Crawford. No, no disrespect to Terrence, even though he's not watching this at all. But I think he probably has a good shot getting to that point. But right now, he's going to get overshadowed by Jake Paul, by KSI, even,
Isn't
right?
that kind of sad though?
So in a way, yes, it's tarnishing the sport. It's a correct take, especially if you're a hardcore boxing fan. You don't want to see Jake Paul. When people say, "Oh, I like boxing," right? You walk in, you say, "I like boxing." Oh, you see the Jake Paul fight? Like they don't want to talk about that.
No one's talking about that.
Most
Nope.
boxing fan, like real boxing fans, probably aren't even watching these fights because they just think of it as a joke. Because it is
Yeah,
a joke onto their sport that someone who just kind of
it's a marketing
made
stunt.
awful YouTube videos is here. Now it works for making the sport money, but in terms of the integrity of the sport, in terms of making sure that we show the skillful stuff first, like in the NFL, we're showing, and also in the NBA, we're not showing street ball on national television, right? But it's great, it's awesome. I love watching street ball, but I'm watching that on YouTube videos and stuff. I'm not watching that on
Exactly.
ABC. I'm not watching that on pay-per-view. So it's its own thing, the celebrity boxing scene, but it is kind of a joke when you get old fighters who aren't even boxers. That's what we're watching. That's the main event. That's the main card of boxing in the past few years. So in a way that you can really go both ways with the whole thing.
Yeah, I agree. Like you were saying, to the casual fan, to the ones that are watching this, they're probably not watching Jake Paul. But when you look at the videos that gets millions upon millions of views, the ones that make the most money is the guys that are taking advantage of the media. The guys that are saying, "Listen, screw you all. I'm gonna be the greatest boxer of all time." Make these ridiculous claims that they
Right.
know is gonna get views. They just
Right.
know that
Oh,
it's
I'm
gonna get
not
views.
blaming Jake Paul for doing what he's doing. He's making tons of money and becoming
I will
again
tell you
a
right now,
national superstar.
I'm
How
willing
would you
to
not?
bet on this right now. Jake Paul is probably making more money than the average good boxer would. I think
He's
he would.
probably making more money on just YouTube.
Exactly.
It's
I
brand new.
think
Yeah.
he absolutely would.
Yeah,
So
he
that's why it's
absolutely
like,
is.
listen, you're Jake Paul, you're in shape, you've been doing this, he's had 8 fights now. It's like, well, why wouldn't I pursue this? Why wouldn't I
Right.
pursue this?
Just at what point does he fight a younger boxer that
I
has
just get
been in the game and it could probably get on a regular card? That's where
it.
we kind of question that.
I think it's going to be at least another year. I
Right. He
think
still
he's
needs
going
some
to.
time.
I think right now he wants to rack up his record. Right now he's 7-1. I think he's going to wait till he gets about 10-2, 11 and
Right.
2. Because I think he's going to lose another fight by whether it's split decision or whatever. Because
If he fights
he's
KSI, I think he loses.
that's not a bad
But
take,
I don't think
honestly.
that fight's ever going to happen again.
I don't think that
I
fight
don't
would
think
happen
it
either
will.
though. I
I
don't
don't
think that
think it
fight would
will.
happen either. But I
Because
think
KSI
there's
is a
going to
dog,
be
man. I gotta see
I
him
think
fight.
there's
We
going to
gotta see
be
him
at
fight again though.
least
He's got a fight coming up.
yeah, there's going to be at least maybe one more fighter out there, UFC or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think an old head's going to beat him. I think if you're past the age of 35, you're not going to beat Jake Paul. I think he's just faster and he's just faster. His hands are quicker. I think
Yeah.
he's going to be more powerful. I don't see that happening. However, if he faces a guy that's in his 20s that is somewhat of a boxer, they got a shot.
They should have more than should because also Jake Paul just needs to see fights more. He needs to see more fights. A lot of these boxers who are younger, they've seen so many fights that won't go on records.
Right.
aside from their record fights. Jake Paul's really only seen his record fight. I'm not like sparring. Yes, that's just practice. These
Mhm.
guys had to really work their way through the lower ranks that don't count against their professional record in the exhibition fights, right?
Right.
Jake Paul is just kind of this is in terms of these matches. That's what he's had. He hasn't been grinding the way that other boxers grind. So yes, he needs to see more fights before he gets to that point.
Yeah, I agree. I would you would you say if Jake Paul, let's say he goes on to win 20 more fights, but
20.
granted, let's say he wins 20 more fights, but granted, he's facing guys that are a lot older than him. He's facing guys that are, past their prime, whatever. Do you
Right.
think it's going to come a time where we actually see him as a champion?
I mean, if he's fighting these guys, he wouldn't be considered a champion. He'd have to
Well,
fight Terrence Crawford.
Oh, I don't know about that, but
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that if we're talking, he wants to be a champion. I mean, these are the guys that as the top guys. He's got to fight those guys because they're not going anywhere either.
I think
They
the
want to be
question I'm trying
champions
to
in
ask
2026.
I think the question that I'm trying to ask is that if he has, built up his resume to a point where, let's say, he somehow manages to earn a championship fight, do you think he has a shot?
If he earns a championship, he'd have to fight. I mean, he wouldn't be fighting nobody box. I mean, like Nate Diaz is not a boxer, right? He wouldn't be fighting those guys. He'd have to fight real boxers at that point and win, not just by decision and have it like he'd have to knock guys out. He'd have to knock guys out. So his record, he'd be what? Like if he wins 20 more fights, he's 27-1. I mean, let's say 27-4 or whatever the record would be. It would
By
depend who he
that time, he
fights,
would be,
though.
but by that time, I believe he would be around 36, 35.
I mean, he wants to be a champion in 3 years, is what he is. If we just go by the claim and what he wants to be a champion in 3 years. I'll tell you right now. I don't know if he actually fight Terrence Crawford. I don't know the weight classes in that scenario, but whoever the
No,
guy,
Terrence Crawford is way too old. I don't think he would. I don't think something like that would happen.
I
And
mean,
also, I mean,
he has no reason to fight Jake either.
no, he doesn't.
But he'd have to challenge. If you got to challenge a champion to be a champion, does Jake Paul have a chance against the current champion?
Oh, this current no.
Yeah.
What?
He doesn't have a prayer. Do you think he's going to have a chance against the current champion in 3 years?
No, but
so then what's the point?
But to be fair, I do think he can lose that title to someone around Jake's age. I do think he could. That I do see.
But there's no way Jake's better than that guy.
No.
But that's who he's got to beat, right? So he's got to beat the guy who's fighting professionals every day.
I'll tell you right now, if within the next 3 years, Jake Paul somehow manages to earn a championship belt, that's going to shut everybody up.
If he becomes a literal champion, a genuine champion, and there's not much.
It doesn't matter what. I don't even think
then it's over. Then Jake Paul is just Jake Paul. Then he's not he's the boxer.
Whether it's any of the leagues or any weight class, welterweight, whatever, I think if he manages to win a belt in general, that's going to be insane.
I mean, that would just be the most absurd thing that I've ever witnessed in my life. I will tell you, I'm just going to tell you it's not happening. Again, I also respect what Jake's been able to do as just being able to show that, hey, if you put your mind to it and you really go work, because he really has put in a ton of work to become a good boxer, you can do basically anything. Like if there's something to take away from Jake Paul, then you take away that. Becoming a good person, completely different story. I'm sure Jake has got his things to work with, but he's focused on boxing and he's done the boxing and he's been great at it. Now we're talking him fighting champions, but he's brought that into the world. We got to see the Nate Diaz UFC fight, I guess. He's got to beat KSI. The fact that KSI is that's his barrier right now. He's not close.
Right.
He's not close to being a champion by any means. Oh yeah, I got to see if you can beat KSI.
That would be the case. I agree.
I don't know. Couldn't tell you. But Joel, anything else you have to add about our good friend Jake Paul over there, the kid from Ohio?
I would love to see him get knocked out just like anyone else would, but
yeah,
I don't believe he's hurting the sport.
No, he's not hurting the sport. It's just really different and really weird. And
yeah, it's different. I agree.
It's extremely different. But I mean, Tim Anderson and Jose Ramirez fighting doesn't hurt the sport, and that was quite a joke as well. So I think, whatever. We talked about Fight Club. We committed the sin, but we will get past it. Thank you so much for listening or watching or however you decided to listen to this podcast. This is Break Panel Sports. I'm John, joined alongside Joel. Fight Club is adjourned.